Alright, how's it going, guys? Today I am the Crown Clown, and we are going to be doing What If Deku is Smoker, the final part. So, what's going to happen in this part? Well, let me break it down for you guys before we get into it, but before I do that, I gotta ask you guys really quick. If you could go down there and click that, red subscribe button. If it's not red, that means you already subscribed, so don't hit it. But if you see that little bell, and you see that, it's hollow, go ahead and click that. That way you make sure you never miss an upload because from here on out, we're going to be going like video every day. That's going to be my goal is to put out a video every single day and hopefully you guys will like it because after this we got, what if Deku is Cobra coming up and what if Deku is Sabretooth is coming up with that. So without further ado, let's get in with a recap real quick. So where we last left off, Deku was mortified with All Might dying. He's in recovery, and Shiketsu's training camp is with Deku at the facility from David's Shield. And with that, there's a lot of other things that they have to account for because they weren't able to help UA with their, villain attack. Bakio got captured. All Might had to go and rescue him along with the other pro heroes. And All Might killed All for One, but was killed in the process. So the world is mourning the loss of the number one hero, and his funeral arrangements are being prepped. And the one who carried him out of that barren wasteland was Naomasa, his best friend. And you know, Deku's adopted dad. And it hits Deku harder because that's like his uncle. All Might was seriously like Deku's uncle, like the cool guy who would actually understand him, let him get away with some stuff. So, yeah, Deku, he's feeling it pretty hard right now. So, after that, and this was televised all over the news, Deku was passed out, Cammy was holding him, and Yoroi found him. So now let's get in to this final part right here. So Deku, he wakes up and he's in his pod, that Saiyan recovery pod from like Dragon Ball. Yeah, that's basically what Deku's in. And, he's freaking out. He's banging on the glass and David's shield is coming in there like, hey, don't bang on the glass, you'll break it. And he says, alright, I'm about to let you out. Just calm down first. And Deku, he's calming down. He gets to the point where he's completely calm. David, flushes the tank. All the water comes out. Deku takes off his face mask and he opens up the door. He steps on out and David's like, you're getting stronger. Your organs are actually starting to heal up from now. And Deku says, we're going hard today. I'm using my quirk. And David says, no, you're not. You don't know what that could do to your body. And Deku says, I'm not about to just wait and let, more people that I couldn't protect die because of me being a weakling. I'm not taking the easy way out. I'm doing this my way now. You're going to help me, right? And David Shield looks him straight in the eyes and he tells him, if you won't listen to my orders, then I won't help you whatsoever. And Melissa, she walks up behind her father and says, if you won't help him, then I will. And Deku looks at Melissa and she says, come on, I can help you out just as well as my old man. So Deku walks off with Melissa and David's left there, tears coming to his eyes because he's trying to save Deku from ending up like All Might, from ending up too injured to actually help people. And he doesn't, realize his daughter is actually trying to help Deku not become like All Might either. Because All Might just did the surgery and that was that. He got back up and didn't even focus with physical therapy. If Deku's willing to do the physical therapy, then, Lo and behold, Melissa is going to make sure he does it the right way, even if he's going to be, forcing it a bit. So, with that, Deku, he's trying his best. He's doing as many sit ups, push ups, crunches, pull ups, bench press, dragonflies, climbing up the rope, using his quirk to phase in and out of his body, relearning his molecular structure, and yeah, he's doing a lot, and he's drenched in sweat. He's hitting the floor, and Melissa says, "You done already?" Deku says, "Not by a long shot." That look in his eyes is like the fire that's Iroi was talking about. It's lit inside of Deku. He's out for revenge. He wants to bring these guys in. He wants to stop the League of Villains no matter what, and no matter what the cost is. So that goes on for about a week, and Deku, he's a week and a half into his physical therapy. It's supposed to take him about 3 weeks to get back to where he can use his quirk. Well, he can use his quirk back to the same extent now because Melissa's added a, different mix to Deku's nighttime regeneration dip. So, yeah, Deku's organs are actually healing a lot faster, and they're actually being able to take more punishment now. And Deku's like, he's ready. He's back up to his physical peak that he was. He's just as physically strong as he was before. And so, what does he do? He starts using his quirk like crazy. He starts sparring with Inasa. And Inasa's not going easy on him because Deku tells him, if you go easy on me, I'll never forgive you. And Inasa's just like, alright, fine. You asked for this, and I'm not about to disappoint you now. So, yeah, Deku, he actually just rushes straight toward Inasa. Inasa throws the wind, and Deku, he just freezes for a second. But he regains his composure and turns Inasa's wind back into smoke. Even though it takes a lot more out of him than it usually does, he's still making progress, and the fighting doesn't stop. It continues, and Deku lands a punch on Inasa, and it hurts Inasa, but Inasa realizes something. These punches are a lot more weighted. They have a lot more weight to them than Deku's punches did before. And not to say that they're stronger, it's just that they hit a lot harder because of the emotion packed into the fist. It's kind of like, a professional boxing champion's fist. They're heavy. And, if you guys get what I'm referencing, then, comment down below. But, you know, Inasa can tell Deku's a lot more serious and driven than he's ever been about anything else in his entire life. And that actually kind of terrifies Inasa because he knows what Deku normally does when he has his mind made up on something. He's not wanting to really just try to have Deku force this. He doesn't want that whatsoever. And, you know, Deku's saying, come on, why are you stopping? And Inasa tells him, look, before we continue on, you gotta tell me you're not gonna do anything reckless, and I want you to swear it. And Deku says, what do you mean? And he says, I told you, swear it now. He says, on what? And Inasa tells him, swear it on your mother and All Might's graves. And Deku's eyes glow red at Inasa. And Inasa can tell, like, he's in for some pain. So Deku rushes at Inasa and he hits him so hard in the stomach, Inasa's actually throwing up. And Deku, grips Inasa by the scuff of, his neck's clothing, and he lifts him in the air. And he tells him, don't you ever make me do anything like that, or I will never forgive you. I will end you. And he throws Inasa head first into the ground, knocking him out. And everyone's looking at Deku just like, what in the hell is going on? And, Deku's just telling him, I meant what I said. I'm not taking any more shit from anyone. If you guys are gonna push me, then no, I'm gonna push back. Don't expect this to go so easily like last time. Don't expect any mercy. I'm all out of that. And he goes back to the weight section. He starts squatting, you know, 400 pounds. He's bench pressing 600 pounds, doing deadlifts on 1,000 pounds, just about. Like, he just keeps every exercise he goes to, he ups the weight to see how much he can actually handle. And he's actually been able to handle a lot, but it's putting a lot more stress on his organs. And Melissa's trying to warn him that if you keep doing this, you're going to end up more hurt than what you came in. And Deku's just like, so what do you think I should do? She says, keep it at 400 pounds on every workout until you're back to where you can do without any stamina drain, without sweating a gallon of sweat at a time. Keep it like that and you'll be good. And Deku tells her, okay, so until then, what do you expect me to do? And she says, just keep doing the basic exercises, the weightlifting, and the sparring. But also, we're adding something new. And Deku's just like, alright, what's the new thing that we're adding? And she tells him, the new thing that we're adding is you're going to start changing the substances into smoke. And Deku's just like, what do you mean? She says, well, you're going to start by adding this can and you're going to turn it completely into smoke, no questions asked. And Deku is kind of worried about that. He's just like, why do you want me to do that? And she says, because it seems like you're scared of it. And Deku says, I'm not scared of anything. And she says, then do it now. And Cammy, she's watching and she doesn't like how forceful Melissa's being. And that's when Yoroi starts walking in with, David's shield. And they're both dressed in all black. And, they say, that's enough for today. Everybody get dressed. We're going to All Might's funeral. And Deku, he has to remember back. And he's like, oh, shit, that's today. So he goes, he showers, and he's actually struggling a little bit because his body is just overwhelmed right now because he did a whole lot of forceful combat and heavy weightlifting, calisthenics. He's done it all, and like he's literally just at his breaking point right now. He's just almost falling over. And Cammy comes in and starts helping Deku get dressed. And Melissa, she comes in there and she tries to help Deku get dressed. And Cammy's just like, what are you doing in here? And she's like, helping him get ready. And she says, that's taken care of, thanks. And she sees Melissa, rubbing her hands against Deku's abs. And she's like, okay, what are you doing to my boyfriend? And Deku's just like, I think she's just checking for injuries. And Melissa says, oh no, I'm not doing that. I'm filling you up. And Deku's just like, what? She's like, yeah, I'm feeling your abs. I'm trying to seduce you. Is that, so hard to understand? And Deku's just like, when I first met you, you were extremely shy and bashful about any type of stuff like that. What changed? And she said, I met you. The moment that you saved me, that you went out and searched for those villains, on Island, that your determination to training, matching endeavor, it made me very attracted to you. And I want you right here, right now. I don't care if your girlfriend joins in. And Deku's just like, but it's All Might's funeral. And she says, do you really think you'd be able to go in that sorry state? And, David comes into the room. He's like, what's going on in here? And Deku says, they're just helping me get ready. And David tells him, look, if you can't even get yourself dressed, then maybe you shouldn't go. And Yoroi tells Deku, there's no shame in resting. No one would blame you. And Deku says, no, he was my uncle. I'm going. And he gets himself dressed, throws on his shoes, and he looks at Cammy and Melissa and he says, we're not done talking about this. Not by a long shot. So they head back to the cities and they're at All Might's funeral. They're standing at attention and everyone is there. Deku is sitting by his father and his aunt, and Fuyumi is right there next to Namasa, comforting him the best that, she can. Endeavor is actually carrying All Might's casket along with other pro heroes. And they're just like, to All Might, a fallen friend, hero, mentor, symbol of peace. May he rest well. May he know how many lives he's touched, how many lives he's saved, how many people he's changed the hearts of and inspired across the world, how many rivals he's saddened, and how big of a shoe he's left to fill. There will never be another All Might. There will either be someone not as great as him, and then he looks at Deku and says, or somebody even greater to come in his shoes to finally fill them, break past All Might's limits, past All Might's standing, and become what All Might could never be. All Might was a symbol, sure, but symbols will eventually fade given time, as All Might's life faded. But what he did with his life, what he did besides becoming a symbol, he became an ideal, an inspiration. He became the driving force for new heroes to step up, to take his place, to put down their lives for these great people of Japan and of the world. All Might has touched so many people all throughout his lifetime, and he has inspired, mentored, and nurtured 3 potentially amazing heroes to become. And, he says he has personally mentored my son Shoto Todoroki, someone who is becoming a great hero and is UA's number 1. He's also inspired Shiketsu's number 2, Inasa, and, of course, the most famous of all of Japan's Hero Course students. He personally saw to, he helped raise, nurture, and helped this young man flourish, the White Chase, Izuku Midoriya. And he says, with that there shall be no way that this symbol of peace will not be replaced. We will have a new symbol, and we will have it soon. I didn't know the man for long. To be honest, I spent most of my hero career trying to catch up to him. I never felt that I was good enough to be the number 1. I pushed myself, and I did many things that were unbecoming of a man. However, I saw the error of my ways. I will take up and protect this city to honor this man's legacy as he lights the torch above All Might's casket, shining a light, and says, "The symbol of peace is not dead. He's merely transformed into something greater. And he is within us all as long as we are willing to believe in what he stood for, to believe in his ideas, then All Might shall never perish. All Might will never be dead. I ask of you all, are you so sure that he's dead now? Or can you feel him inside of you, pushing you, driving all of you to become better, to become something greater than yourselves? Honestly, can you ever have said that there was a time to where you couldn't or wouldn't push yourself further, but after seeing All Might, knowing All Might, and being nurtured by All Might, that can you honestly say that is the same of all of you? If it is, then you have never truly known the man. You have never respected what he stood for, and you will never, ever, ever understand what he sacrificed and what he sought. But if you do, if you feel a difference, then surely you know All Might isn't dead. He is within us. He's within our anger. He's within our sorrow. He's within our joy, our hardships, our triumphs. He's within us all. Please, don't let him fade. Don't let the legend that was All Might fade into nothingness. Stand strong against diversion. Stand strong against adversity. Stand strong in the face of evil. And may we all be able to overcome it in his name, in his legacy. I will never stop fighting for peace. As he says that, everyone immediately, the tears that are falling from their faces, they look up. They see the tears flowing down Endeavor's face as he raises his arm in All Might's signature pose, and he says, "Watch me." And he ushers for Deku, Inasa, and Todoroki to come up. And they do. They all stand shoulder to shoulder with Endeavor. They raise their arms in tribute to All Might, as everyone around the world watching All Might's funeral, seeing the 3 students that he's inspired, motivated, and nurtured himself stand tall and proud in a moment that many considered the darkest time in the current era. That motivates, inspires, and invigorates everyone across the world, everyone that seeks for peace and justice. They're all motivated now and reinforced and believe in Endeavor and the next generation of heroes to come. And, 2 people in particular have took notice of Deku, and they went to approach him. And, Deku says, hello, I'm Izuku Midoriya. May I ask who you are? And, the short one says, my name is Gran Torino. And the taller one says, and I'm Sir Night-Eye. I was All Might's sidekick. And Gran Torino says, and I was All Might's teacher. It saddens me that he's gone. However, I am very happy to see he passed on his torch to you before he died. And Deku's eyes widen, and he knows that he's All Might's successor, and he knows that they know that as well. And, Night Eye, he's looking at Deku, he's seen the videos, and he stares right into Deku's eyes, and he uses his quirk on Deku right then and there. And he's honestly surprised because nothing comes up. He can't see into Deku's future. He can't predetermine what Deku's going to do. And he's just like, this is strange. And, Gran Torino's like, what is Night Eye? And he tells Gran Torino, this kid, it's like he has no future. And Gran Torino's eyes widen and they're like, what do you mean it's like he has no future? And, Night Eye says, well, I'm not seeing anything. It's like it's just smoke. That's all I see. And Deku says, well, that is my quirk. My quirk is smoke. If that's all you see, then be rest assured I will still be alive. And he walks away. And he says, I'm not expecting you guys to accept me as All Might's chosen successor. All I have to tell you guys is watch me. As he walks away. And he heads on back. Cammy, wraps her arms around him. And, Namasa, he hugs his son. He holds him. Makoto, she hugs her nephew. And, they tell him how proud of him they are. That how far he's come in his physical therapy and how just overall happy they are that he's okay, and that how sorry they are for All Might's passing, especially Namasa. And Deku embraces his father so much, and he says, I'm just glad nothing happened to you. If I would have lost you and All Might, I don't know what I would have done. And Namasa says, thank you. Thank you very much for that. As he hugs his son back, they embrace for a moment. And Todoroki, seeing this, he realizes that, it doesn't matter how bad of a past you have, as long as you're looking to the future, it can be bright. It can be amazing. And he walks up to his dad, to Endeavor. He looks him in the eyes and he says, I forgive you. And Endeavor's eyes widen, tears flood down his face. He cannot see, the tears cloud his vision. He hugs his son, apologizing over and over again how sorry he is for everything he's done. And Todoroki says, come live with us again. And Endeavor's like, are you sure? And, he's just like, yeah, Dad, I'm sure. Come live with us again. And Endeavor's just like, I'm not sure your mother would be alright with that. Because Endeavor actually got Todoroki's mom out of the hospital. He, set them up in their house, and Endeavor moved out into an apartment. And it's a really nice apartment, don't get me wrong. But he's living by himself. And Todoroki just tells him, just come back home. And Endeavor, he walks home with Todoroki and Fuyumi to, meet Natsuo and Todoroki's mom. And they talk about it, and it's decided that Endeavor moves back in with his family. And everyone except Natsuo actually forgives Endeavor. Natsuo doesn't want to forgive him. Not yet. But eventually, Endeavor is starting to win Natsuo over, slowly. But back at the facility, Deku, he's still pushing himself harder and harder after that funeral, after telling Night Eye and Gran Torino to watch him prove that he's worthy of All Might's successor. Deku pushes himself until he drops, and then he keeps going, even if he has to crawl, even if he has to use his chin to move himself across the ground. He won't stop until he can't move anymore. And seeing this determination from a kid, someone who's not even 17 years old, David Shields just like, all right, let me help you guys. Because if you guys keep at this, you're just not going to get anywhere. And him and Melissa both work together to actually create a stronger and more, beneficial and quick acting chemical to where if Deku just bathes in this thing for a full day, he'll be fully healed with his organs and should be able to use everything back to its maximum potential. And Deku, he does. He bathes in there for 24 hours. And during those 24 hours, people take turns watching him. It's like a watch that goes on and they change every 5 hours. And after that, Deku comes out fully rested, fully healed. And he says, all right, where's my cigars? And everyone just looks at him like, that's the first thing you ask when you get out of there? And Deku's like, I need a smoke. I haven't had one in weeks. And, Melissa hands him some cigars. Cammy, she's just looking at her just like, really? And Deku walks out, popping the cigars in his mouth. He doesn't even bother to dry off or, put on any other clothes besides his underwear. He's just walking around there smoking. And he's just like, all right, let's get to work. And David's like, aren't you at least going to shower first? And Deku's like, nah, it'd take too long. I'll shower when I'm done. And he starts by, going for a run while smoking his cigars. And he's actually, better than he was before his injury. He's a lot stronger, faster. His quirk, it's responding to him even faster now. Its powers amplified. His overall body just keeps moving at an accelerated rate. His quirk, it's not mutating anymore. It's stable. He can control it again. He's mapped out his entire molecular structure once more. And it's only been 2 weeks now. And with that, Deku's like, I'm finally back, but I'm better than I ever was before. This is exciting. As he says that, Inasa, Seiji, Mora, and Kami, along with Yoroi this time, get ready for a fight. And they say, alright then, if you're saying that you're better than you ever were, take us down. And Deku cracks his knuckles and he says, bring it on. And they do, they charge at Deku. And Inasa charges a hurricane ball straight towards Deku, and when it gets close enough to him, it expands out as wide as a natural disaster, and Deku just turns it to smoke. And he uses that smoke to funnel it into a tornado, catching all of Seiji's flesh attacks that he tries to throw out at a distance, and he actually throws it right back into Seiji's face. But that's not all. He engulfs Seiji in the smoke tornado, suffocating the air out of him and then dispersing it. So Seiji is knocked out. And with Seiji out of the way, that's, their most dangerous long range fighter out of the way. And, Cammy, she starts emitting that gas from her mouth to create her illusions, and Deku actually stops it. Like, he controls that gas and causes it to evaporate, stopping Cammy's, uh, you know, illusions before they even have a chance to get started. Then he rushes right at her, grabbing her by the waist, and he looks her straight in the eyes and he says, I promise to make this quick and as painless as possible, but you're mine tonight. It's been too long. Like, you're mine. As he knocks her out. And he lays her on the ground gently. And Inasa's just like, alright, so you done now, Romeo? Because it's Mora who's, devastating at long range, mid range, and close range now. You have Inasa who's seriously got a bone to pick with Deku and won't hold back now because Deku's fully healed. And then you have Yoroi, someone who wishes to test Deku's convictions to their fullest extent in a life or death battle. And Deku looks at them, cocks his head a little bit, and he says, bring it on. And all three of them charge him at once. Mora goes to wrap him up in his hairs. Deku phases out, grabs Mora's hairs, throws him into Yoroi, and then teleports over there, kicking Yoroi straight in the face, cracking his nose, bloodying him. And before Yoroi can even, react, Deku grabs him under the arms and over head throws him straight into the ground head first and kicks Yoroi right in the head as he goes to wake up, fracturing Roy's skull in the process, knocking him out. And after Mora saw that, he's just like, holy hell, this is going to be harder than we thought. And, Inasa charges straight at Deku, creating almost like a Rasengan type attack, as Deku returns the favor in full, charging straight at Inasa, smoking fist, charging up a smoke blast, and they connect, smoke versus wind, and Deku's smoke is getting denser. It's like metal pushing up against Inasa's wind, and Deku actually releases smoke around Inasa, grabbing him, restraining him as Deku pushes his smoke blast in, and it not only just consumes Inasa, but it puts him into like a restraint and then seals him up. And Deku says, smoke jail seal, as, it's a smoke coffin, but with handcuffs and restraints inside, making it impossible for Inasa to break out. And he looks at Mora, and Mora says, I surrender. And Deku undoes his smoke on Inasa, and he starts helping everybody else up. And Yoroi, he's got a concussion, so he's heading to the healing tank, which, it helps him just as much as it did Deku, even more so. So Yoroi, he's fully healed now. Like, they basically created the Saiyan pods that healed you from Dragon Ball. Like, the recovery tanks, they got those now. So, with that out of the way, Yoroi's just like, so we can go as hard as we want, and those tanks will heal us perfectly every time. And David says, yes, any type of injury, within reason. You can't be impaled and expect you to be fully healed. Like, I'm telling you, it will mend your broken bones and any internal damage and, help fix the scars that you might have. But if you come with a hole in your chest, like, we're not going to be able to help you with that. And, they're just like, yeah, that's fair enough. And so for the rest of their time there, like, they're pushing each other, breaking their bodies basically. And, Deku looks at Cammy and he's like, I told you a couple days ago that you were mine. I meant that. Come here. As Cammy says, okay, fine, let's go. And Melissa's, she's looking and she's a bit jealous. And she actually follows them. And she pushes her way into Deku's room with them. And she's like, look, if you're going to be doing her, you're doing me. And Deku's like, okay, so what? You want me and Cammy and you to have a three-way. And he says, I'm fine with that. And Cammy, she's not about to be outdone. And she says, yeah, I'm fine with that too. And Deku's just like, okay, fine then. Do it. As, he throws his shirt off. He's naked, just like ready to go. He's like, all right, let's get this bedtime sparring out of the way. And they're just like, oh, someone's confident. And he says, well, I mean, if you were packing this, I'm pretty sure you'd be confident too. Because they've been looking at his upper body and not his lower body. They look down and they're just like, oh, okay. And, Deku says, all right, let's get to it. And, he throws Melissa on the bed as, he bends Cammy over the bed and he's just like, all right, you work your tongue and let me handle the back, all right? And, Cammy's just like, okay, sure. And, while Cammy is giving Melissa head, Deku's like tearing Cammy's ass up. Like he's just, you know, getting it done, and Melissa's just screaming, pleasure moans, and Inasa, he's just like, okay, this is some bullshit right here, and Seiji and Mura, they're not as confident as Inasa is, nowhere close. So, Inasa, he walks over there, and to his shock, the room is unlocked. He walks in on Deku, digging down Cammy while, Cammy's giving Melissa the runaround down there on her pussy. So, Inasa's just like, okay, you're not allowed to have both of them. You can have one, but you cannot have both. And, you know, Deku's just like, all right then, what you gonna do about it? And also, he shuts the door, he locks it, and he throws off his clothes. He's like, come here, girl, you're mine. Talking to Melissa, and Melissa's just like, but, I mean, and she looks at him, and, she knows he's muscular, he's built, and, he might be a little bit smaller than Deku, but, I mean, it's not too much, she thinks. So, she bends over the bed, and she's like, well, you going to? And Inasa says, bet. And, Deku and Inasa, they're tearing up their girls. Now it's just double the echo of Cammy and Melissa moaning all throughout the facility, and David is pissed. He's, severely just pissed off, and Hiroi's just laughing. He's hysterically just laughing his ass off. He's gonna have to, jump down Deku and Inasa's throats and Cammy's throat for this, but he can't say without telling a lie that he's not, proud of his students, especially Deku and Inasa. Like he is proud of those two boys like nothing else. So, Deku, he's over there. He's done switch Cammy around to where she's giving him head, sucking him off, and honestly, he's still going in on Melissa over there. And, Deku and Inasa just so happen to make eye contact, and they're just like, all right, can't make this weird. High five. So they just high five right then and there, And then it's the other way around. Melissa's giving Inasa head, cleaning him off while Deku's finishing off Cammy. And, you know, Inasa and Melissa, they get done first. And Deku's just still going at it with Cammy. Like, he's pent up. He's had a lot of stress dealing with this woman. He's making sure he gets everything he can. And he does. Like, as soon as they're done, Deku ends up, he's using protection. So once he busts, like, he just pulls that out, throws that in the trash, and he tells them, all right, get dressed, go to your own room. And, Cammy's just like, well, that's rude. He's like, I know it's rude, but I don't trust you around that trash can right now. Until I dispose of it, you are not allowed back in this room. And Asa says, yeah, you two get out of here. Because he's not foolish enough to, let Melissa around that shit either. Like, he knows better. So they're done, and, Deku and Asa, Gami, Melissa, they all get dressed, and, they all walk out the room. And as soon as they get to the dining hall, they're meted by a piss off David Shield. And he's just like, Melissa, you're coming with me right now. And, Cammy's just smickering. And then they feel this presence over their back. And they look and they see those red eyes glaring at them. And, Deku's stomach just sinks. And Inasa, his blood just goes cold. Cammy about has a heart attack. And he says, you three, my office, now. And, they go to his office. He shuts the door. His office is soundproof. And he says, out of all the years I have been a hero and a teacher, I have never come across a class of first years quite like this. One who would most brazenly break the rules and have sexual relations in this manner. To be honest, I've never been more proud of, Izuku and Inasa. And Cammy, well, good for you. I'm pretty sure you enjoyed it. I mean, if your moans were anything to go off of. And Cammy's just like, what do you mean? And he says, your rooms aren't soundproof, We can hear you all throughout the facility. And Deku's just like, she was that loud. And, Yoroi looks at Deku, puts his hand on his shoulder, closes his eyes, and shakes his head and says, oh yeah, we heard everything. Every moan, every go harder, faster. And Deku's face just turns red. He's like, please don't tell my dad. And Roy says, oh, I'm not telling him a thing. As far as I'm concerned, this was just a strict disciplinary hearing, and if anyone asks, I chewed all of you out extensively. You all know not to do this in the future, yada yada yada. But in reality, I'm proud of you, my boy. Inasa, you did good too. Good job not being, sloppy seconds. And Inasa's just like, is that supposed to make me feel better? And Yoroi says, well, yeah. And Inasa says, I'll take it. And so that's done. That's out of the way. Because I know if I didn't do this, at least one comment, I would have at least gotten one comment from someone asking, where was the 18 plus content? So there you have it. Here's your 18 plus content. Hope you enjoyed it. Anyways, so their whole training camp session, it comes to an end after 1 week. Needless to say, Inasa was severely surveillanced with Melissa for the rest of that week. And Deku and Cammy were not allowed anywhere without any supervision. Like, David was not about to let that happen again. He was not. So everyone goes home, and Deku is meted with his father and his aunt and Fuyumi, and you know they tell Deku we got some talking to do, and Deku he tries to not even pretend he knows what they could be talking about. He's like, about what, And he says, something you did during your training camp. And Deku, he starts sweating at this point. He's just like, oh no, 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 no. Who could have told him? Who could have told him? I know you really didn't snitch me out. If it was Shield, if David snitched me out, I swear I'm a snitch on him. And he says, I heard you overexerted yourself to the point where you collapsed during your training. And Deku's like, oh, yeah, I did that a lot. And Namasa, he's just like, look, you can't be doing that, alright? Like, seriously. You need to get a hold of yourself. Like, did you injure yourself anymore? And Deku's like, I did, but I was healed fully. I'm better than I ever was. Trust me, I'm stronger now. I can protect everyone. And, Namasa says, and what about that mutation of yours? Deku says, I got it under control. I can manipulate it at will now. And Namasa says, good, good. And so he walks back into the house and he says, there's still another matter we have to talk about. And this is when Deku really starts sweating. And, Namasa says, but for that, me and you need to talk in private. As Makoto and Fuyumi say that they're going out shopping and to have fun. And Makoto whispers in Deku's ear, he doesn't know about that. I answered that phone call. So Deku is immediately put at ease. But now he's curious. What is it that Naomasa wants to talk to him about alone? So he goes in there and he starts talking to Naomasa, and Naomasa says, okay, so look, I understand you've had a mother once before and that you were, robbed of her and you haven't had one since. I don't know how I'm supposed to ask you this, but I'm gonna do it. How would you feel about having Fuyumi as your mother? And Deku's like, wait, are you serious? Like, you're planning to marry her already? And Nawasa says, marry her? No. No, no, no. But, it's been months now. And, it is getting harder on her to come see me with her living so far away. So I was thinking, would you mind if she moved in? And would you consider, helping her around here? And Deku's like, look, if you're asking me if it's alright, if your girlfriend moves in with us, go ahead. And Namasa says, will you also help me soundproof the room? And Deku's like, are you about to be having a lot of bedtime sparring? And Namasa looks at him and he's like, yes, and don't worry, I have protection. And he's just like, what kind? And he says, the strongest armor out there. And Deku's like, alright, good, good. And he asked Deku a question. I noticed that some of them were missing when I went in there to use it, though. And Deku starts sweating again, and he's like, are you sure you just didn't use too many? And, Namasa says, that's exactly what Makoto is trying to tell me. However, what you and her fail to realize is I tape everything that goes on in this house. Every phone call made is recorded. And he starts playing the phone call from David Shield to Makoto about Deku's sparring time. And boy, is Deku sweating. And he's just like, I'm sure there's a perfectly good explanation for this. And Namasa says, next time just ask. Alright, I get it. You're a teenager. You're gonna do this stuff. Cammy's a very attractive woman. But, I'm glad you took the initiative to use the armor. So, thank you for that. I don't want to be a grandfather yet. And Deku's like, and I don't want to be a dad yet, so we're good. And Deku looks at him and says, and I don't want a sibling yet either. And, Namasa, he says, I agree not to give you a sibling. You agree not to give me a grandchild. And Deku says, agreed. And they shake on it. So, time goes by, school goes by normally. Deku's hanging out with Cammy more. They're doing more sparring sessions at Deku's place now, since Namasa's cool with it. And, Fuyumi, she moves in, and both rooms are soundproofed. So she has no idea what Deku doing with Cammy, and, she has no idea that Deku knows what's going on with her and Namasa. And the funny thing is that they actually end up doing that a lot on the same day. So, Deku and Almasa, they pretty much have a schedule to it, to where neither one will notice if the other one's there or not. So, yeah. That's how that's going down. And so, it's time for the provisional licensing exam. And, Deku, he's there with Shiketsu. UA shows up, and, this is the first time that Deku is seeing Bakugo. And Bakugo is actually, toned down a lot. He's not yelling anything, because he realizes that he was so weak that All Might, was brought into a fight that killed him. And, you know, he's just feeling heavily responsible for that. So he's not yelling, he's not all overconfident. He's been humbled time and time and time again by Deku, by Best Jeanist, by Mora, and now by what he considers to be his fault that All Might died. And he's been close to quitting UA a few times now, just out of depression. Like, the dude's depressed. But since they're all at the dorms now, he does have a support system in place. So that's what's going on with Bako. And Deku, he really doesn't even instigate anything with Bako. He just goes straight to Todoroki and he, high fives him, tells him, so, we gonna stick together or we gonna be at each other's throats? And Todoroki says, nah, we're good. And, him and Inasa, they shake hands. They're pretty tight now, too, because all of them are, considered rivals, and they all want to help each other, but they also want to push each other to be better at the same time. And everybody knows that they have a special bond. And Miss Joke, she comes with her class of, rejects. And, Aizawa, he's smacking his face. You're always just like, you two should get a room. And, Aizawa's just like, from what I heard, your students already got the room and used it. Deku and Inasa's spines go cold. And they look at Yoroi with fire in their eyes. And Cammy is just, her face turns red. It doesn't take a rocket scientist for everyone there to figure out what Deku and Cammy did and what Inasa did. And Yoroi says, "Hey, I didn't tell him nothing." And Aizawa says, "No, but David Shield has a big mouth, and he likes to rant. I saw him at a bar not too long ago, and I let him rant." And Deku's like, "Wait, you go to a bar, Aizawa?" And Aizawa's just like, "Yeah, I'm an adult kid. I need to have some things to take the edge off too." And Miss Jokes, kind of just nudges at, Aizawa, "Well, I could always take the edge off for you." And she starts laughing. Aizawa says, "Not in your dreams." And she's just like, "How cruel." And, all of the, students from Miss Jokes class are looking at Deku, and the Deku, wannabe, or as I call him, bootleg Deku, gets right up in his face, and he's just like, "I'm better than you." And Deku's like, "Well, you ain't nothing but a bootleg wannabe ripoff." And to get out of his face. And boy, that sure does make him mad. And Inasa tells him, "Look, you wouldn't even stand a chance." And he's just like, "What makes you say that?" And Deku says, "Well, basically, any of your quirks are useless against me. I nullify physical attacks. I'm, completely immune to attacks of elements because I just turn them into smoke. And on top of that, try to attack me with the ground. I'll turn the ground into smoke. There's nothing you guys can do that can hurt me. Not anymore." And, he says, "Oh, you should have said that. Although I don't believe it with that nasty scar you got all over your face." And Deku, he's just like, "You need to watch your mouth, boy. It's gonna get you into trouble." And, so they're pretty much heated. It's ready, like, on site. And, they break it up and they start heading inside. And Deku's walking with, you know, Inasa, Seiji, Mora, Todoroki, and Kami. And he's telling them, that dude, it's on site. Like, he don't care. It's on site. And Inasa says, "Yeah, he kind of disrespected you out there. Bring up your scar of all things." And Deku's like, "I don't care. It's on site." And Todoroki's like, he's repeating himself now. He must be pretty mad. Cammy says, "Well, I could always, cool him off." And Inasa says, "Not in public. Cool him off on your own time." And, they get ready. They're all into their own places. Todoroki's with UA. And Deku just keeps, repeating it to himself. On site, on site, on site. And, they tell him that they're allowed to go. Deku sees him. He's like, "Got him." And he eliminates him right off the bat. And dude is just stunned. He's just like, "What?" And Deku says, "I told you, you wouldn't stand a chance against me." And, Seiji, he goes after the rest of their class. Mora does the same. Cammy actually goes for, some of the girls at UA. And she eliminates Asui. She eliminates Mina. You know, uh, Toru. She eliminates her. And Jiro. She eliminates all of them. And she passes. Todoroki, he eliminates, just the fodder people. Deku, he's eliminating the rest of Miss Joke's class because, to him, it's like they all disrespected him. By none of them stopping their idiot, they all disrespected him and brought up painful memories that he does not want to have, be shoved right back in his face. Because now that he's thinking about his scar, he just remembers All Might's death. He remembers him looking up, tears falling down his face as he screams into the air, shattering the glasses and the windows. And basically, how Deku was, it was like Luffy when Ace died. Like, that's how Deku was. and he remembers all the hell he went through with his physical, therapy, his vitalization, and Deku, he pretty much is good now, but he's still thinking about it, and that's put him in a bad mood. So, yeah, he's just thinking they all had to pay for that. And, he goes back over there. So all Shiketsu passes, and, a majority of Class 1A, like Uraraka, she passes, Momo passes, and, some of the guys, they pass. Mineta definitely does not pass, you know, so he's out because he tried to cop a field on Cammy, and well, Cammy kicked his ass. So Mineta's gone, and Aizawa is just like he's mad. And Miss Joke and Aizawa, they see how many of their classmates were, just destroyed by Roy's students, and they're just like, okay, what have you been teaching them? And Roy tells them, I put them through life or death survival training against me. And, they're just like, what, are you kidding me? And Yoroi says, however, there's one monster among them that you really don't want to put in a bad mood. And, Bootleg Deku, he's like, oh yeah, and who's that? And, you know, he says, Izuku Midoriya. That's the one. That's the guy you don't want to put in a bad mood. And they're just like, and why is that? And he says, well, for one, you put him in a bad mood, he makes sure you all suffer. And not only that, but he's beaten me outright, no contest. And that actually starts to put the fear of Deku into them. And he thought he was just hot stuff because he was like Deku's elder, and he just thought that the hype around Deku was made up. But having Deku just eliminate him in the flash of an eye, and then watching him from the stands eliminate every single one of their teammates, it actually, put into perspective how he got his name, the White Chase. And so now the second part of the exam is going, which is the rescue. And Deku's working with Kami for this one. Seiji and Mora are working together, and Todoroki and Inasa are working together. And Todoroki's asking Inasa, why did he look back at, Yoroi when Aizawa said that? And, he's asking, wait, were you and Deku, doing Kami at the same time? And he's like, no, 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 I had my own. I had my own. Like, I'm not dumb enough to touch Kami, dude. Seriously, I already found out what happens if you put Deku in a bad mood. And Todoroki's like, what do you mean? He's like, dude, grab me by the collar of my shirt and slam my head into the concrete and stomp me. Like, you do not put that dude in a bad mood for anything. And, Todoroki's just like, he seems to have gotten a whole lot more temperamental. And he says, no, it's just the stress. He hasn't had time to distress yet, and it's actually getting to him. He'll go back to normal after, this stress is lifted off his shoulders. So he allows that to process for a moment, and he says, I got you. I got you. By the way, are you sure, that you're all right? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, I could tell there's been something off about you. It's like you're just not feeling anything, and you're not as cheerful or energetic as you usually are. And also says, well, I'll tell you after this. Let's just focus on this for now. And as soon as he says that, Gang Orca, he starts busting in, and Inasa's shocked to see his mentor in here of all places. And Seiji is just as shocked. And Mora's just like, well, I'm glad my teacher's not here. And Seiji's just like, what's the plan? Deku yells out that he'll handle the villains and keep them off. You guys keep evacuating the civilians. And Inasa says, I'll help. And Deku's like, alright, sure thing. And Todoroki says, I'm with you. So Deku, Inasa, and Todoroki, they're all there to fight. And Gang Orca, he singles out Deku. He's like, you and him, one on one. And Deku says, I accept. So he rushes straight at Gang Orca. Gang Orca gets ready to punch him. He punches, but it just goes through Deku. And Deku's at his back, grabbing him by the neck, putting him in a chokehold, and knocks him out through submission. And, while he's on the ground, everyone's just like, what the heck? And also, creates a hurricane gust to knock out half, and Todoroki freezes the other half. All the villains are taken care of right then and there. And that gives Deku, Todoroki, and Inasa passing points. They are, told to exit the stage. They automatically passed. And they're just like, alrighty? Alright. So the rest of the, rescue evacuation happens. Deku's just chilling up there with Yoroi. Todoroki's over there. And, so is Inasa. And Deku, he's laying back. He's chilling. He's popping in his cigars and smoking them. And so he's just like, all right, yeah, this is cool. And all that happens. And, the bootleg Deku, he comes over there. He's just like, hey, I'm sorry for bringing up that scar on your face. That wasn't professional, man. Deku, he literally just blows smoke in his face and says, look, I'm trying to relax. Take your bullcrap somewhere else for someone who actually gives a damn. I don't. Leave me alone. We're not friends. You don't know me. I don't know you. I don't want to get to know you. I don't want to, kiss and make up or none of that. Get out of my face and leave me alone. And that kind of just, irritates Bootleg just to, new heights. He's just, furiated with Deku. And he's just about to say something, and Deku just gives him that look, and he shuts up and sits right back down. And, as I was looking at Deku, and he's just like, the boy's got game. Not only that, but he's got presence, and he's got control. And, Deku, he sees that Momo, she's down there. And he realizes he still needs a Jite. He needs a new one since Endeavor melted his. So he's about to go and ask her for a new one. And, as soon as she's done, he walks right down there to her. And he says, hey, Yarozu, I need a favor. And she's like, depends on the type of favor. Because, she's already got the gist that Deku, did Cammy. And she's, not really wanting to mess with Deku like that. And Deku says, I need another Jite. And that immediately puts Momo's mind at ease. She's just like, oh, sure, I can create that right now. Same specs as last time? And Deku says, yeah, sure. And she creates him a new one, and Deku says, thank you, and walks off. And he says, oh, if you ever need a favor from me, just let me know. Don't be shy, And that immediately, makes Momo's face turn bright red. And, Uraka says, how? She doesn't have your number. And Deku literally just takes a puff of his cigar, blows the smoke out, and it takes the form of his cell phone number. He says, "There, now you do." And, everyone's just like, damn. I was always just like, I hate to admit it, but dude has got some game. And he just walks off. And, you're always just like, I'm so proud of this kid. Like, this dude knows. And so Deku, he goes back home. He gets a text from Momo, and he kind of just ignores it for the time being since he's out with his family celebrating getting his provisional license. And so he's just chilling with his family. Fuyumi's there now. Namasa and Makoto, they're all there, and you know Deku, he's happy for the first time in a long time. He's actually happy, and he's not really wanting anything to mess this up. And so all the time that passes normally throughout getting to the next internships, and Deku, he actually gets a call from someone, since he's not really wanting to go back to Endeavor right now, since he really can't learn too much more from Endeavor at this point. And his phone rings, he answers it, and it's Night Eye. Night Eye says, "Hey, you know how you told us to just watch you?" And Deku's like, "Yeah, what about it?" He says, "Well, I have the perfect opportunity for you to, prove to me that you are worthy of being All Might's successor." And Deku says, "Okay, how?" And he says, "Come to my place for internship." And, Deku says, "Fine, I'll use my work study to go to you." And he says, "Perfect." So, Deku turns in his form to Yoroi, and Yoroi sees Night Eye, and he's like, "Okay." And he approves. And Inasa actually goes to Endeavor this time. He goes to Endeavor for his work study. Cammy, she goes back to Midnight, and, Seiji and Mora, you know, they go back to their respective ones, like Gang Orca and Best Genius. So that still happens. And when Deku gets to Night Eye this time, it's completely different. He says, "Okay, now that you're here, here's what's going to happen. We're going out on patrol right now. This man, if you see him, you do not engage. You do not do anything but observe him, and where he goes, you will report back everything. This man is suspected in some heavy stuff." And Deku tells him, "All right, I understand." And, Deku is actually working with Mirio still. And this is their first interaction. And Deku actually holds a lot of respect for Mirio because of their quirks. They've had to work super hard at not dying from their own power. And they actually, hit it off immediately. Deku's not this brooding guy anymore. Now, since he had a lot of time to just relax, his stress levels are way down. He's back to his normal self, and he's just like, yeah. So they're actually enjoying their talk while they're out on patrol, and this little girl bumps into Deku, and Deku, he gets down on a knee. He asks her if she's okay. He picks her up, brushes her off. He notices the bandages on her, and he's like, "Hey, what's wrong with this girl? We need to get her to a hospital. she's covered in bandages. And, uh, Mirio says, yeah, sure. And Deku asks, what is your name? And she says, it's Eri. And he says, do you have any family, Eri? And Eri just says, no. And, you know, then he hears another voice. He says, Eri, there you are. I've been looking all over for you. Oh, I'm so sorry. My daughter seems to have bumped into you two heroes. I'm sorry for any trouble she's caused. As, he's taking off his glove, and Eri sees that, and, she tries to go back. Deku doesn't let her. He knows fear in a child. He's seen it, and what he's seen in Eri's eyes when she looks at Overhaul, the man that they're supposed to be not interfering with, like, Mirio tries to tell Deku, let her be, let her go, and Deku says, I'm not scared of scum like him. Eri looks at Deku, and he looks at her, and he smiles, and he says, don't worry, everything's gonna be alright. Go with this man right here. He'll get you to some medical facility where they'll take good care of you. And don't worry about him. He won't get anywhere near you again. And, he is carrying his Jite on his back. And Overhaul tries to lunge at Deku. And Deku just smacks his arm so hard he breaks it with his Jite. And Overhaul, he just fixes his arm. And Deku's like, oh. So it appears that you use deconstruction and reconstruction as your quirk, right? And Overhaul's like, yeah, what about it? And he says, so you affect molecular levels as well, correct? Overhaul says, as well. And Deku says, yeah, sorry, but you ran into the White Chase today. And Overhaul, he remembers hearing the stories about the White Chase and looking at him on the news and everything like that. And he's like, All Might's chosen brat, huh? And Deku says, don't you ever speak that name again. As he punches Overhaul so hard in the face, his mask goes flying. He grabs Overhaul's face and slams the back of his head into the pavement. And Overhaul, he's not knocked out, but he is dazed. And his crony, they start coming into the alley as well, and they try to attack. Like, Rampa goes straight towards Deku. Deku takes his Jite and slams it into Rampa's skull, cracking it, knocking him out. Because Deku's not holding back anymore. Like, ever since the past instances, Deku's learned that holding back is only going to get himself hurt and potentially killed eventually. So he's got to go full throttle from start to finish. And he saw that look in her eyes. And he knows that that was the look he had when his father abused him and beat him, and when he lost his mother. He knows the look in her eyes all too well, and he's gonna be damned before he lets her ever go back to something like that again. And so they're fighting. Like, Deku's taking on the whole group. They're trying to shoot him with those anti-quirk bullets. And Deku's smart enough to realize that they're not real bullets. And he takes Chisaki's body and he shoves it in front of him when one of those bullets are fired, and it hits Overhaul, destroying his quirk. And they're just like, what? No, Chisaki, we're so sorry. And Overhaul is just like, my quirk, it's gone. And Deku's like, well, that's one less thing to have to worry about. As he knocks Overhaul out, he takes down the rest of the guys pretty easily by using Smoke Jail Prison and suffocates them. And then he calls up, Night Eye and says, hey, I got your Yakuza right here. Help me bring them in, will ya? And, Night Eye, he's there on the spot, like, as soon as he can. He sees Overhaul, he sees all of his men, and Deku says it seems like he lost his quirk, but I don't know if that's permanent or short term. I wouldn't risk anything like that too much. And he says, of course. So they do restrain Overhaul appropriately, and through interrogation, they find out where Overhaul's staying at, and they raid his place, and Deku's there. Like, he's promised Eri that he's going to destroy it. He's going to bring that building down. And, they find the boss who's in a coma. They take him to the hospital, and pretty much the rest of them, without, Chisaki there and his main guys, they're literally just fodder. And they're easily cleared out. And Deku, he jumps up into the air. He gets a giant smoke fist and slams it right into the house, right in front of Eri. And he yells to her, you don't have to be afraid anymore. He's gone. Everything they stood for is destroyed. You're free. You can live your own life now. And Eri, she starts to tear up a little bit because she never thought that she could see that. Like, she never thought that it could happen. And she's just so happy to hear that. But Overhaul's hold on her, it's not done. It's not broken yet. And so they're, trying to help her more and more. She still gets taken into UA, and, they're going to start training her powers. Night Eye survives and acknowledges Deku as a worthy successor. And UA's festival time comes around. Shiketsu's not really doing anything like that since they're, more like a strict school. But, Deku, Inasa, Kami, they are going to be going over to UA's, festival to see what they're going to do. And, Mirio, he's already talked, and not Kami, but Eri is going to be allowed. And Seiji and Mora, they're coming too. But, they're not really going to be there to expect much. But they are going to go there to meet some other people. Because, to them, it's like, let's face it, there's only 5 people in our class. And the majority are dudes. They're not meeting anybody anywhere else that's their age and hero students that are girls. They're going to UA's festival to try to find themselves some girls. And so Deku, he meets up with Mirio. They high five, and he looks at little Eri and he's like, hi Eri. And, he says, oh, do you like, fruit? And she's like, yeah. And Deku, he still asks her what's her favorite fruit, and she says, and it's a sweet red one, and he says a little strawberry, and she shakes her head, and he thinks, and he's like, is it an apple? And, Eri, says, apple, yeah. And Deku says, hmm, well, you're going to the festival, right? And Eri says, yeah. And Deku says, well, I'm pretty sure they'll have candied apples. And Ari's like, what are those? And he says, well, they're apples that are really sweet like candy. And they have this candy finish on them. And, Ari's mouth just starts watering. Deku just hugs her, putting her on his shoulders. And, he's playing with her. And Cammy, she sees that. And, she's just thinking, he'd make a good dad. And Deku looks at Cammy. He can tell the cogs are turning in her head, but he's not about to just put little Airy down and just stop that because he knows that this child needs some positive reinforcement and some happiness in her life. So he continues playing with her, because he's got a lot more free time now. There's nothing really holding him back. And the League of Villains, that little plot hole, well, they went through their records with Chisaki, and Chisaki actually kept tabs on them. So they were swatted and arrested, which means no Meta Liberation Army, none of that, no War Arc, and with All for One dead, I mean, there's really a lot of the incidents that later happened were because of All for One. So a lot of that stuff with his death wouldn't really happen. Like a lot of people wouldn't even feel obligated to give Shigaraki the time of day. The doctor wouldn't do nothing with him anyway, so Shigaraki wouldn't grow any real strength. And Jigato Makia, he'd pretty much, not even give Shigaraki the time of day. Like, he would just run off from him because he would see him as not worth his time. And so all that, they all get arrested, and Deku is there to help with Dabi, and he does take Dabi in, and Dabi does reveal his identity to be Toya Todoroki. So Endeavor's having to deal with his past coming to haunt him. And, they're having Dabi put in a mental institute to try to rehabilitate him and get him on a better path moving forward. So, Endeavor, he's really trying to make his son a better person. And, Deku, he's walking to the sports festival and he sees, this lunatic, this like Saturday morning cartoon guy called Gentle Criminal. And, he says that his next target is going to be someplace big and near impenetrable. Deku, he's no fool. He already knows what he's about to try and what he's about to try and do in the first place. And he lets his dad know, and so security's even tightened up more, but Deku does still go to that convenience store to get the stuff for the apples, and he does still run into Gentle. Now, here's how things differ. Gentle knows Deku, and he knows his reputation. Gentle just definitely tries to avoid Deku. Deku knows who Gentle is, and he blitzes him, and he, tries to fight him, and Gentle tries to create that, step with his air, but Deku just disperses that into smoke, and Gentle's just like, I am not a good matchup against this kid, am I? So he tries to go hand-to-hand combat with Deku. Deku obliterates him. So Gentle gets beaten and battered right then and there. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And La Brava, like, Deku just restrains her with smoke. So she can't do anything. And, and even if La Brava tried to give Gentle that power up, Deku has her mouth closed. She can't speak. So they're both arrested by Naomasa and taken in. So Deku's free to go, and he continues on to the sports festival, and he's showing Eri around, and he's making her that candied apple as well, and he actually gives it to her a lot earlier, and she's super happy. Like halfway through the day, she gets a candied apple. Her eyes are glowing with excitement. She's super happy. She bites into it, and it's just super sweet to her. And Cammy, hugs up on Deku, and she actually picks up Eri and holds her in her arms. And Eri is actually, pretty much appreciating Cammy and Deku, and is really just looking at them like in a family type of way. And she actually, says that if she were to ever have parents, she would have wanted them to be just like Deku and Cammy. And, she does remember her mother, but, you know, her mother wasn't really the best out there, and her father was Yakuza, so yeah, not the best parents in the world. But, Deku hears that and he's like, well, you can call me your big brother instead. How's that? And she's like, yeah. And, Cammy's like, oh, that's adorable. You have your own little sister now. And Deku, he says, don't you dare give Naomasa any ideas. And Cammy, she sees the look in his eyes and she says, like, okay, okay. And, they take, her to Class 1A's, musical performance, which does still happen. Deku's just not a dancer on there. And, you know, she's watching them and she's smiling and having a great time. And Mirio, he's actually in tears. Deku's crying and they're smiling at her. And, she's just set free. She's not, caged up anymore. She doesn't have a lot of anything really. And, you know, all throughout the rest of Deku's high school career, like he's training Eri, he's, you know, studying with Night Eye, Endeavor, and he does eventually graduate. Now Masa does marry Fuyumi, so Deku is actually Endeavor's, you know, grandson in a sense, like an adopted grandson. And so he's family, and Todoroki is kind of like his uncle now. So that's a bit weird for Deku to get used to, and Todoroki's just as weirded out. So they choose just to leave it as like Shoto and Izuku, and they're like, yeah, we're cool. And Inasa, he actually did score with Melissa, and those two are actually a couple. And Deku and Cammy, they do get married, and Deku becomes the number one hero, and he's actually, strong. He's the new symbol of peace, and all throughout the world, his name is known. And he takes on any case. He doesn't, do it for the fame. He doesn't do it for the glory. He's doing it to honor All Might and to do it because it's the right thing to do. And he keeps to his moral code about justice. He proves that pro heroes can be great and that they don't need to be selfish for any type of thing at all. Todoroki becomes the new second hero. He becomes the new number two, and Inasa becomes the new number three. And you know, later on down the years, like Toya Adabi, he is rehabilitated and he does rejoin his family. Mind you, he is on probation. Like his crimes can't be wiped clean. So, Endeavor actually has a happy ending here. So does Todoroki because he does eventually get with Momo, and he does get like that. And Momo calls in her favorite Deku years later as, being Todoroki's best man at his wedding. And Deku, he agrees to that. So that happens. And yeah, that's pretty much how it ends. Like, Smoker Deku has a pretty good ending. He's the strongest hero in the entire world. He's far surpassed All Might. Like, there's not a whole lot left to say. And, I always knew that, like, the overhaul arc would be over quickly because the way I wrote Deku, it's just like, it's not in his nature to be so, cowardly like canon Deku. Like, no, if he sees a kid that's in trouble, he's not just going to be able to turn a blind eye. And, Deku does eventually have a kid, and it's a little girl. Like, Deku has a little girl, and he does end up naming her Inko Midoriya Jr. in honor of his mother. So, yeah. Anyways, that is all. That's the final chapter of What If Deku Was Smoker. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and tomorrow I hope you guys will tune in for the 1K special of What If Deku Was Cobra. As always, I am the Crown Clown, and if you guys enjoyed this content, I appreciate if you guys liked, commented, and subscribed. I will catch you guys in the next series. As always, have a beautiful rest of your day. I am the Crown Clown, and I will catch my clown pirates in the next episode. Later.